Kevin O'Connell refuses to name J.J. McCarthy the starting quarterback, and it does not matter one bit. Let's talk about the why behind it and what his words actually are saying, because the answer may surprise you. Plus, we'll talk about rookie minicamp this weekend and some things to potentially watch out for. Welcome to a Thursday episode of the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by your friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner, he is producer Dave, and we're ready to talk some Minnesota Vikings. We're now 2 weeks removed from the NFL draft, and we're finally getting rookie minicamp. Sometimes the Vikings have it the week after the NFL draft. This year, they decided to give me a little bit of a break and wait an extra week, which means the wife put me to work landscaping. And let me tell you, I am not built to be a landscaper. It is not for me. It is rough. I used to cut grass and stuff. No problem. I cut the lawn today, weed whipped. No big deal. But landscaping, scooping up dirt, throwing sod away. Oh my gosh. It took me like 10 minutes just to move my yard waste bin all the way down to the end of the driveway because it was so full of stuff. Dave, it was gnarly. Like, I'm glad we own a house. I'm glad we have an asset that's appreciating, but damn, dude, I'm good.
Oh, I'm still got to do some of that too, but it's on the list.
Yeah, it's not fun, but welcome. I know we've talked a lot about the fact that, hey, we want you guys to hit that bell in the top corner and ring it after you subscribe. It's because of days like this. And if you would have had the bell rung, you would have seen the message that I sent on the little post tab. It used to be called the community tab on YouTube, saying that we would be going live tonight because of pre-existing commitments with Dave. Buying a house, that whole process absolutely stinks. But oh gosh, once you're done with it, it rocks. So, and there's Merlin. You know what? Merlin's barking, but you know who's not barking? Odie boy. He is sleeping like a good puppy. Just zonked out next to me. He's a good boy. But we're going to talk about a couple things. As Delton says, plus the like button. Please hit it. All those little things help. And you know what? It doesn't cost you any money. That's the best part. You can help us out, and you don't have to give us money. But you always are welcome to do that.
You know what Delton did yesterday?
What?
He came over and watched the NFC North show, Who Will Be King, over on Bleachers to Speakers, because they were hosting, and I appreciate that very much, Delton.
That rules. I love how you say, who will be king? It's like a Greek god or something like that, that deep bellowing voice. It pops me every time. But let's talk about some fun things within the Minnesota Vikings ecosphere. And I don't necessarily know if this is fun. And honestly, for some people, it's probably kind of annoying that we're still having this conversation. But I want to delve into more about the fact that Kevin O'Connell just straight up refuses to actually call J.J. McCarthy the starting quarterback. And there are people who are like, well, they're like trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And this happened with the Aaron Rodgers thing too. Oh, they haven't named J.J. McCarthy the starter. That means it could be anybody. It could be a box. The box could be a boat. Remember that Family Guy skit? And to me, we're not doing people justice by looking into things like that. Now, sometimes that's the reality, but it's not the reality here. And it's about understanding how Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Mensah have talked throughout the entire process. They are incredibly intentional speakers. Now, you have some older head coaches, old school guys like Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman, who they weren't very intentional. Let's be honest. Mike Zimmer was blunt. He was just going to tell you. And like the Kellen Mond line, when they asked, well, don't you want to see him? And like the Green Bay games, like I see him every day in practice. Like they'll just be blunt and they won't beat around the bush. What O'Connell and Adolfo Mensa do is they do beat around the bush a little bit, but they don't just give you a bunch of bullshit. They're very intentional with how they speak. And that intentionality is really important when we're having these conversations. They have named JJ McCarthy the starting quarterback. You just haven't been paying attention. Let me kind of explain why. The fact that they haven't officially named it is multiple factors. They don't want to actually name him the starting quarterback until he's earned it. And JJ McCarthy said, I want to earn everything. They are in lockstep on this. But they have told you that JJ McCarthy is the guy, and I'm going to kind of go over things. So Kevin O'Connell had an appearance on the Rich Eisen show. And that appearance on the Rich Eisen show gave us a lot of interesting things. Also, kudos to Rich Eisen, who I grew up watching on SportsCenter with Stuart Scott. Like, I'll never forget waking up on a Saturday or Sunday morning, sprinting down to the TV and watching SportsCenter. And back then, you got one SportsCenter, and they repeated it from 6 a.m. until noon. You didn't get multiple SportsCenters. It wasn't a fresh hour. You got the same SportsCenter. So that was it. And everything's just so much easier now, which, rules, but it makes you kind of nostalgic because back then SportsCenter was about highlights. It was actually about the games. And Eisen and Stuart Scott, God bless them. Phenomenal team. The chemistry was there. But it's one of the reasons why, when Rich Eisen has somebody on that I want to hear from, I really like listening to him because he asks really thoughtful and insightful questions. And not only that, when a question has to be asked, he doesn't back away from it. He just straight up asked him, is JJ McCarthy your starting quarterback? And O'Connell knew it was coming. He knew he was going to get it. Why? Because it's probably the number one question surrounding the Minnesota Vikings right now. JJ McCarthy. What's going on with him? But it was how
he gets it when he goes to the grocery store and a fan sees him.
Oh, let's be real. Kevin O'Connell doesn't go to the grocery store.
All right. Or goes out, does whatever, yeah. Goes to the Wolves game. Go Wolves tonight.
He'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Wolves at 7:30. Wolves back, baby. No Steph Curry. The Wolves are almost like minus 200 favorites to win this series right now after losing game one. But you can't shoot historically bad like that multiple games in a row unless you're the Boston Celtics. So let's talk about what he said. So initially when he got asked this question, and if you want, I wrote about it for A to Z Sports. You can go check it out. It was the words he said and how he framed things. And this is what I mean by intentionality. He's telling you what you want to know, but you have to find it. It's almost like you're in an escape room and you have to kind of work your way through the words and find the clues. So this is the first part of the quote. Rich, right now, the rules prohibit even Minnesota Vikings defensive players from lining up across from Minnesota Vikings offensive players. So we would be imagining one heck of an opponent if we said it was us coaches standing out there as a defense or some of the other offensive players forming a defense. That's not what this time of year is about. This is the learning, the teaching phase. So much growth and development can happen during this time when there's really no negative outcomes. There's no plays that don't go your way and have a real impact on the team. They're all just learning moments right now, but there's going to come a time where that changes, and it's going to come very rapidly and quickly. JJ is going to be in a great position to assume and ascend in our organization, but right now we really don't have any feelings on competition as much as we've got an obligation as coaches to put our players in position to attack that competition phase. Sam will be a part of it, meaning Sam Howell, but we've got to get Sam ready to play. One big thing I took away from this, and it's something that I don't think we think about enough when it comes to coaching. They are teachers. Their job, of course, is to win football games, but the number one way to win football games is by teaching your players properly and getting them in position to succeed. That is what Kevin O'Connell is talking about here. If you get JJ McCarthy to a great position where he knows the playbook inside and out, he can make every throw, which we already knew he can make every throw. But if he can do it more consistently than he did in college because he fixed the mechanics, and he's comfortable with the protections, he's comfortable calling the plays, he's comfortable with how the players run their routes, all of these things matter. And when it comes to McCarthy, this is a good thing. You want to be able to have a teaching phase. And the fact that O'Connell has put this at the forefront is a great sign. You want to continue to have this on the forefront. It's about learning. It's about teaching. And the competition, as far as Sam Howell is concerned, because part of the question that Rich Eisen asked was about, hey, will this be a competition? Because if it's not going to be McCarthy, who else is it going to be? And how are you going to find out that answer? It's going to be a competition. Sam Howell has been a Viking for 12 days. He has barely been in the building, if he's even been in the building yet, which we don't know for sure. There. I'm sure he has, but unless we've physically seen him, we wouldn't know. So he still has a lot to learn about the system. He has a lot to learn about the personnel. He has a lot to learn about everything. And that's not to say it's insulting or anything. He's just new. When you're new at a job, it takes time. It takes reps to really feel comfortable in what you're doing. It doesn't matter the job. I went from a job writing about the Vikings to a job writing about the Vikings, and it took me time to be able to really figure things out. He's never played in a Kevin O'Connell type system. So how is he going to adapt and adjust? How is he going to feel comfortable? And one of the interesting things that John Schneider, the Seattle Seahawks general manager, said, we kind of put Sam in a bad spot last year because he wasn't really ready from a playbook perspective. Now, he was with the organization about 7 months, but it was also a brand new offensive coordinator. Everybody was new to the playbook, and he was in a tough spot, and he had that brutal performance against the Packers on Sunday Night Football when he came in for an injured Geno Smith. So I'm at a spot with this Minnesota Vikings team where I'm not really concerned that he hasn't been named the starter. I'm not concerned about it at all. And one of the interesting things about this whole conversation is you have O'Connell who's talking about teaching, and he's consistent about that. But it's the second part. So they continued on this conversation, and he went into more detail about what these practices do and mean. And this is where he essentially said, JJ is our starting quarterback. But I want to challenge all of you to find where he says it, because this is where you can really learn and understand how Kevin O'Connell is talking. So here's the quote. I know everybody's wildly concerned about these reps on here. Let me put you at peace, Rich. When McCarthy, is taking snaps, he's taking plenty of snaps from Ryan Kelly, who happens to be a 10-year starting offensive center in the league. So take that for what it's worth. I don't think Vikings fans or any wildly successful, nationally renowned broadcasters like yourself, talking to Rich Eisen, should be worried about the amount of reps JJ is going to get with the ones. We're going to have him ready to go, and by playing quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, that's footwork, that's rhythm, that's timing, that's running the huddle, that's running the show, that's cadence, that's identifying defensive structure that he's got to be responsible for getting us into the right place. He's owning it, Rich. Now, that quote, where is it that he says that JJ McCarthy is essentially the starter? There are a couple different points, but for me, the number one spot where he says it, when he is taking snaps, he's taking plenty of snaps from Ryan Kelly, who happens to be a 10-year starting offensive center in the league. So take that for what it's worth. That is, for me, that's O'Connell saying, that's my starting quarterback, because he's taking a lot of snaps from guy who's going to be our starting center. The backup does not take snaps from the starting center in situations like this, even in a teaching phase. You're having the starting quarterback who needs to develop a relationship. You need to have a relationship with your center's butt. The center needs to be able to feel your hands up there And they need to be able to know that you're going to take the snap. You have to develop that chemistry and relationship. Now, I know I got Dave to chuckle. That was the whole point of me framing it like that. But there is something like you have to be able to feel your quarterback on your butt, because you have to be able to know that you're snapping it in the right spot. You have to be able to tell that it's under center versus shotgun, because you don't always have the ability to dip your head and look underneath your legs. So there is something to repetition. That's why when you see a center go down and they're on the field with the training staff, you often see the quarterback taking snaps from the backup center, because they haven't had a relationship build up like that yet. Or the backup quarterback will be taking snaps from the center, because it gets you more comfortable. It gets you to a good point. You know, like when you speak the cadence, when that ball is coming, so you can be more prepared, because milliseconds and tenths of a second matter when it comes to getting out from under center so you can get going in the play. Everything matters in the NFL. Absolutely everything matters. So when he says that McCarthy is taking snaps from Ryan Kelly, to me, he's telling you, this is my starting quarterback. The other piece of this quote to me that says that he's our starting quarterback is saying that you shouldn't be worried about the reps JJ was getting with the ones, and that he's owning it. He's owning how to play quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm not going to repeat all the different things, like that's footwork, that's rhythm. But the fact that he's owning that stuff, that's starting quarterback kind of thing. So when you look at it from that perspective, there is really no debate left here, in my opinion. JJ McCarthy's the guy. And I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to stay as is. And let me tell you, it's going to be really fun and fascinating to watch moving forward how the Minnesota Vikings go forward with McCarthy, how that's going to look. Because there's a lot of different ways it could look. There's no guarantee about anything. But the Vikings are very steadfast about McCarthy. And they should be.
He indicated it on the previous question where he says he's ascended, which of course drives me to think of Stargate. But
SG1, baby.
Yep. And but it is, he is QB1. Now, I put a clickbaity title on there just to hopefully drive a few extra viewers, and I appreciate those that have joined us. You guys rock. But he is the QB1. Now, I find it interesting that Sam's, he's got to learn this too. And same with Brosmer. It is something interesting. And T-Bass, that couldn't have felt comfortable whatsoever today.
No. Not at all. We've got some questions in the chat that I want to get to. But first, Dave, I don't know if you know this because you've been working on the house stuff. Did you know that we have a new pope?
Yes, an American pope. I saw that.
Not just an American pope, a Chicago pope. And this is one of the funniest things this is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Chicago got a pope before the Bears had a 4,000-yard passing quarterback. Incredible, right?
Yes.
When you do Who Will Be King next week, make sure to flaunt that one. I am not.
I'm hosting next week, so it's on this channel for everybody to watch.
And don't forget, next Wednesday, we will be going live when the schedule releases. I believe that is at 7:00. Mm-hmm. So make sure you adapt yourselves. Dave, we should talk off air about potentially doing an episode on Tuesday morning, because I believe the international games are going to be released Tuesday morning. And I've heard rumors that they're playing 2 in a row.
We'll find out. I've heard the same rumors. The first one is Steelers in Dublin, which I can't wait for. But the second one is staying and flying over to London.
Yeah.
For the Brownies.
So what would be interesting about the Steelers game in Dublin, somebody may be able to correct me, but I believe it will be the first ever game, first ever matchup to have taken place in 3 different countries.
With this versus the Steelers, that we played them in 3 different countries.
It will be the first matchup in NFL history to have been played in 3 different countries. Regular season, of course, because preseason they've done games in like Finland, they've done games in Germany, they've done games in the Tokyo Dome, which one of the Tokyo Dome games was how Terrell Davis ended up making the Broncos roster because he had that massive hit on a kick return. And that just woke everybody up. It's like, oh, this dude can play. Yep, absolutely he can. So that would be interesting. And it would also be the second and third time in NFL history that there was a repeat matchup in an international game, because the Vikings have already played the Steelers in England, and they've also played the Browns in England, 2013 and 2017 respectively. So that would be interesting. But it also wouldn't be unprecedented, Dave, to have the Vikings play back-to-back games internationally. The Jaguars have done so the last 2 years. But the difference with the Jaguars is the Khan family owns Fulham, the football club in England. They have more of an infrastructure and more of an understanding of the region, and especially because they play at least one international game a year. So those logistics give you a leg up. Now, I'm not saying that the Vikings are going to be screwed or anything like that. They've got people, they've got resources with the NFL to figure out all those logistics and make it work. Not worried about that. But the fact that you don't have that leg up does matter a little bit. So that will be interesting. There will be talks about collusion. Oh, the Vikings are screwed. They're still probably going to win both of those games. So
and
I'm not
away
worried.
games on the schedule.
Yep, which means 8 home games, 7 road games, and 2 neutral. That's huge. Like,
exactly.
You need to take advantage of that. But we'll have a lot more next week. So this is why we keep telling you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because we may do extra stuff next week. So be prepared. Be prepared, because there's going to be a lot of stuff with the schedule, okay? Now, speaking of a lot of stuff, Dave, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with our friends at Underdog Fantasy. There's UFL, there's Major League Baseball, there's hockey playoffs, the Wolves and the Warriors tonight, and you can set a lineup with players from all of those. You don't have to stick to one sport. You can pick all across. Whatever offerings Underdog has available, you can pick from 2 to 8 different players, higher or lower on their stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your bet. And the best part is, with the promo code Forno, as you've heard me talk about many times, you can get a deposit match up to $1,000. Excuse me. Whatever you deposit, that's what you get. Free play. It's a great thing. You just got to be in one of those available states. And just remember, it is a lot of fun. But if you find yourself having a little too much fun and you start to get concerned, you just need to do one thing. Call 1-800-GAMBLER, and you will be ready to rock and roll. All right. Let's talk about rookie minicamp, Dave. And I have basically been talking for almost a half hour straight. I want to hear your thoughts. What are you looking forward to with rookie minicamp right away?
I look forward to seeing the guys, getting our first look, getting some pictures, getting them, to see in purple. I don't expect much. They're going to be running around, and somebody's going to be Brosmer's going to be throwing a football and stuff like that. But I look forward to seeing them for the first time, seeing what all the individuals look like. Yeah, we saw the draft picks. I know what they look like. But let's see what the UDFAs look like. Which UDFAs are going to stand out
Mhm.
This is their time to start shining and shining brightly if they wish to make the team.
Yeah, it's gonna
How
be
quickly
really
do they learn?
it's gonna be really interesting to kinda see how this all coagulates, I guess you could say. And I think there's a lot of interesting kind of storylines to look at. I'm intrigued to see a couple things. One, and I'm gonna have an article release at some point tomorrow about it. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, the 5th round pick. What do the Vikings want him to be? What now we kind of got a little bit of the sense from the press conferences after the NFL draft, but I want to know what's going to happen. What is what is he going to be? Do they consider him a defensive lineman? Do they consider him an edge? How do how do the Vikings want to use him? How do they want to develop him? Because he's a tweener. He can do a little bit of everything. Is he the next Pat Jones / Jahad Ward with the ability to really put his hand in the dirt and be a crasher on stunts and be able to wreak havoc that way? Is he going to be like a stand-up edge and a 275-pound run defender? Like, what are we looking at here? And I think that aspect is going to be so intriguing to me with how the Vikings want to magnify what he can be. Because right now, he's not a good football player per se. He's got an elite tool set, but he's like an apprentice. He just does not know how to use them yet. Can you develop that aspect of his game enough to really maximize what he's going to give you? That's the biggest question here. If you get an answer of yes, man, Dave, you're in a good spot. I really think that this dude can be a game wrecker and he can make a lot of things happen for you on defense because he's got the length, he's got the size. He's almost 6'6", he's 275 pounds. He can bend a little bit, and he's explosive. 98th percentile athlete per relative athletic score as a defensive lineman. So you can do a lot of things. But just because you can do a lot of things doesn't mean you're good enough at them. And that's going to be the trick. Getting him good enough at those things. If the Vikings do it, oh, buddy, I'm excited to kind of see what that package will look like. If they can't, I don't think anybody will be super surprised because we've seen a ton of high upside athletes just never be able to put it all together. And he's a 5th round pick. So we don't have sky high expectations for him, nor should we. Sky high expectations will come if he starts to play really well. And that's going to be a really fun aspect for me. The other aspect, and then I'm going to go to the chat because I see people talking about different things about rookie minicamp, and we'll touch on those here in a second. So if you've got some thoughts, throw them in the chat right now. I want to see Tommy Hill. And if you don't know Tommy Hill, I wrote about him earlier this week. Nebraska actually announced that he was a minicamp invite. Now, here's what that means. He's not on the 90-man roster, but he's going to be one of the many players that they invite for a look. This is how Adam Thielen made the team. This is how he got on the 90-man roster. This is how he stuck around and then became a Pro Bowl receiver. If you make the team as a 90-man, not on a 90-man roster, but if you make the 90-man roster out of rookie minicamp, you will have a leg up on everybody else. Because you proved something when you had everything to gain and nothing to lose. You will get a leg up on those guys. And that can be huge. Now, Tommy Hill had I believe it was a plantar fascia issue, which I'm actually dealing with right now. Let me tell you, it sucks. It's awful. But he missed a bunch of time in his final season at Nebraska. He's played less than 1,200 snaps on defense. But what he can do is he's got great ball skills. He's a good cover corner. And he stifled Travis Hunter, who won the Biletnikoff Award as the best wide receiver in college football last year. And he also won the Heisman Trophy as the best overall player in college football. Went number 2 overall to the Jaguars. That is going to be his calling card for a while. And you have a guy that absolutely just whipped Travis Hunter. Okay, you have my attention. Now what are you going to do with it? That gets you in the door. But how do you keep that door from opening and closing in front of you? That's going to be the trick. And Hill's got size. He's a former receiver. He's got really good ball skills. He's aggressive. He's long. I think he's got a future as a cornerback in this league. I thought he probably should have been an early day 3 pick, but injuries can push you completely out because some teams just may not like your style of play and they have you off the board because of that. Some teams may have you off the board because of medicals. There are a lot of different elements that play, but they got him into the building for minicamp. And I think he can potentially get on the 90-man roster and then make the team. That's the big thing. Make the team. Like, you get on the 90-man roster, he could be a guy that they want to keep over Dwight McGloven. So that's somebody I'm really keeping an eye out for. Now, he's still got to make it, and he's still got to prove that. And I bet part of it is they want to check on the injury. They want to see how he's healing. They want to see, okay, if this guy balls out, is he going to be worth bringing in because of that injury? If he clears and checks all those boxes, Hill can definitely make this team. So I cannot wait to see him. But those are really the two guys I'm looking at that I really want to see. Yeah, sure, you want to see Donovan Jackson, but how much are you going to really see from offensive linemen? Mini camp like this is for like 7-on-7 kind of drills. Because you really can't do, like O'Connell said, you can't like line up offense versus defense and just go to town. That's not how this works. That's training camp. But I do think that you can see a lot of interesting things from your skill players, your defenders in the back 7, and that is what I'm really looking forward to. Tommy Hill, remember the name. All right. I want to get to this from Freddie before we start going into a lot of stuff. He mentions earlier that ESPN named the secondary as their biggest weakness, which, okay, that's fair.
PFF did too.
Yeah.
Corner in particular.
And he says, is Kwesi cool with their current DB situation? Here's what I'll say. I think Brian Flores is cool with their DB situation. And here's the thing. You don't need elite defensive backs. You just need to not suck. So they feel, and let me tell you, they know more about the Mekhi Blackmon injury than we do. He's fully cleared to my knowledge. So he can participate in everything. If you feel comfortable with Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, and Mekhi Blackmon as your top 3 corners, and you think they're going to be just fine, it's Brian Flores. Okay, that's fine. But that's the big thing. They just have to be good. They don't have to be great. The Bengals made the Super Bowl in 2021 with 3 average type corners. None of them were really, really good. They were just all solid players. I think Byron Murphy is trending towards really, really good. And Isaiah Rodgers, the film I watched, there's a lot of potential there. So if those guys play well enough as a unit and don't prove to have a weak link, yeah, I think it's fine. Would I be opposed to adding more talent? Absolutely not. And Bulldog LLC is like, no more Rashad Breelands. The Vikings have a history of signing the most washed corner alive. I still remember, and I loved the fact that we signed him. Remember Chris Dishman? I believe that was 2000 or 2001, and he was the culprit with the Antonio Freeman wild catch on Monday Night Football in overtime. Like, they just have this tendency to sign the most washed corner alive and put him in premier positions to make big plays. They haven't done that. But I guarantee you, maybe not a full guarantee, but this is what I firmly believe. The draft next year is going to be secondary heavy because they feel really good about the defensive front. The linebacking core, Blake Cashman has a chance to be extended. Josh Metellus too, but Harrison Smith is going to retire. Josh Metellus, I think he's going to be extended, like I just said, but he's technically a free agent after the year. Isaiah Rodgers will just have 1 year left on his deal. Same with Mekhi Blackmon. They're going to make some real improvements to that secondary next year. I think it's mainly going to come in the NFL draft. So I'm not super concerned. I think they'll be just fine. Fine being the key word. You can obviously get better. But I don't think some people are making it out to be like this disaster group. And I just don't see that at all. I don't see that at all. All right. let's scroll back up and let's talk about some of these. I've seen some Ty Felton comments. I think what's really interesting about Felton is he going to play well enough to unseat Jalen Naylor? It's a non-zero chance. I put it at like 5 or 10%. But Jalen Naylor's not a guy I love. I think he's fine. I think he's a solid hand. They love Felton. And Felton has some stiffness to his hips. Doesn't run the most crisp, clean, nuanced routes like you have with guys like Jefferson and Addison. I think you can oil hips up to an extent and get a little bit of that stiffness out. I think you can learn and develop as a route runner. But the entire Maryland offense ran through him. So that also speaks volumes that an entire offense is basically run right through you. And he comes in here, and at best, he's going to be the fourth option on like almost every route he runs. He's just going to be a guy that's running routes. He's going to be doing a lot of those cardio routes where, hey, go zoom, run fast. You may get the ball, but you probably won't. That's going to be his role. But I do think that there's potential there. And if Keenan McCardle loves you, to me, even if I have some trepidation about the pick, which I do, I'll defer to McCardle because that guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing big time. Let's see here. Bulldog LLC, I think Logan Brown has a good shot. Always need depth on the line. I like Logan Brown. I think he's a good player. I also think it took him forever to get into become a guy, even though he was a former 5-star. He's got injury concerns, and he got kicked off of Wisconsin for striking a teammate. But we don't necessarily know all the details. What does that mean? Because teammates fight all the time. If you get kicked off of the team for fighting, that says a little something extra. That tells me that you didn't just fight. You beat the piss out of somebody. And I'm just going off, like, reading between the lines here. I don't know what happened. But that's my guess. Delton mentions we have a tight end 3 battle. I think Gavin Bartholomew, being a 6th-round pick, is firmly in the lead. But Ben Urasek and Bryson Nesbitt aren't jabronis. They can make a real case to be that tight end 3. But Bartholomew's got the huge leg up because he was a draft pick. Teams want their draft picks to make the team. It takes a lot for UDFA to make the squad. So Urasek at one point was talked about as like being a top 50 pick. Nesbitt, I never really saw as a guy that was going to be like a real player in the NFL. I thought Urasek was going to be more of an inline guy. Bulldog LLC mentions Josh Oliver. Like, I think Urasek he's kind of the TJ Hawkinson mold as far as archetype, where he's a bigger guy. He can run routes. He can do some blocking. Because remember, he came from Stanford, then went to Georgia. That dude knows how to block. But can he do enough in the passing game to really elevate and be a great pro? I don't know. But that's one I'm going to be looking at real close.
And to be a good tight end, you generally have to love that portion of the game. Not be just a willing blocker, but especially if you're an undrafted free agent, to make a team, you've got to be able to, hey, I'm embracing this. I want to knock the heck out of the edge, the defensive tackle, the linebacker, whoever's in front of me.
Yeah. George Kittle's like the perfect example of that. He just loves to whip people's asses. Like, that dude rules.
My all-time favorite, Jimmy Kleinsaucer, was a master at it.
Yeah. Brian says that he loves the show and Dave rules. Man, I'm Brian. I'm starting to think you just love Dave on this show. I'm kidding. Thank you very much for the kind words. Said were good on DB, and you agree, yes. What are your thoughts about backup linemen? So I think Justin SKOL, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. It's spelled SKULE, but I think it's pronounced school. And I think he's a guarantee. I think he's going to be on this team. As far as Rouse, I think he still has to prove himself. I think he could potentially lose to Logan Brown. I don't think it's anywhere close to a guarantee, but I think Walter Rouse is going to be your 9th offensive lineman, or 8th, I mean, because I think it's Brando's going to be your first off. Then you're going to have SKOL, and then you're going to have Rouse, and then now you have to figure out who's going to play center. Brando, I think, has taken some snaps at center, like out of necessity. Like, hey, you're going to be a backup offensive lineman. We're moving you inside. We want you to learn center. I think that's something he's done before, but I'm not 100% sure. Michael Juergens probably has a step up in that realm, but he was bad last year in camp. So I can't remember. It might be Zeke, the NC State center, who's also undersized. That's just another Garrett Bradbury, which is kind of funny, but that's somebody to kind of keep an eye on. I think Rouse makes the team, but if he doesn't have a great camp and somebody else does, he could be gone, which that would really stink.
Bulldog just said Michael Juergens. There's somebody I want to see them make the next step.
Yeah, he's
even though he's a backup center.
Yeah, he's got to take a step. What was interesting is at the owners' meetings, they said that Juergens was going to compete at left guard. I don't know how much they see him as a center. I really don't.
You got to have emergency centers.
Oh, no, an emergency, sure. But I'm talking listed on the depth chart as the backup center.
Right.
I'm not convinced that they have that. Couple more, and then we're going to call it a day. Freddie and Timothy asking about Brosmer. I had Brosmer making the team on my initial 53-man roster projection because I think that there's enough to project forward to be excited about where you can feel Brett Rippon's expendable. But he still has to prove some stuff. He's very conservative as a thrower, but he's great with anticipation and timing over the middle. He just needs to have some balls. That's essentially what it is. But I do like him. I think he's perfect for what the Minnesota Vikings run offensively. But like I said, he's got to show some balls. He's got to be willing to throw into tighter windows. And those windows get a lot smaller in the NFL. So if you're that conservative in college, how conservative are you going to be in the NFL when it's a lot harder? And we'll end on this from Michael Endicott. What are the chances of a Montego Moss joining the Vikings or at least the practice squad? I'd say 0.1%. Montego Moss was a 5th-year breakout. In his best year, he had like 700 receiving yards at FCS Maine. I think this is, hey, we want camp bodies. Let's throw a bone to Randy Moss, who's like in our Ring of Honor. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm not saying this is an insult to Moss. I don't see it. If he balls out, I'll be glad to admit I'm wrong. But to me, it's just a camp invite. You have to show something to make the roster, and nothing about kind of the little bit I've seen from him and his college stats tell me anything else other than no, it's probably not happening. But we'll see. We will see. That is going to be our show tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Over 100 people still here. We greatly appreciate you. We'd also love it if you like and subscribe and ring the bell, because we may have some extra content next week with the schedule release. We are going to have a lot of fun stuff moving forward. We're going to be live the second the schedule drops Wednesday night. I believe that schedule is dropping at 7. So the second the Vikings tweet out the schedule, we're going to slap that live button and we're going to talk about it. So you are not going to want to miss it. Thank you guys so much for joining. Don't forget 2 All Bloggers on Sunday, where Darren makes the rare appearance on a Vikings First and SKOL show. I am Tyler. He is Dave. Go watch the Wolves tonight. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!